Oh my God, chat. Epic fail. So I did not realize that I'm supposed to be streaming today. And I'm supposed to be streaming right now. But honestly, I kid you not, look at my face. This just totally made my day. So I streamed like, I guess 3 days in a row. And I was like, man, streaming is so tiring. Oh my God, it's so tiring. Oh my God. Life is hard, chat. Oh my God. But it turns out that this is actually kind of epic. I'm having a blast. I don't know why, but this just totally made my day. I have stuff scheduled today. I've got meetings. I've got, you know, I'm doing work. I was literally just reviewing a video from our ADHD guide about how getting organized protects you from two things: forgetfulness and lateness. And like, why do we need to get organized? The crux of the video is like, if we try to get organized, we've got a problem, right? Because you can actually do something, or you can get organized about doing something. So I can do the task, or I can get organized about doing the task. And so, you know, sometimes it feels like organization is inefficient. And this gets worse because if you really think about it, when you originally start an organizational system, it actually doesn't help you, right? It doesn't actually help you. It just costs you something because you haven't really learned to rely on the system. A good example of this is, let's say I make a grocery list and I say to myself, okay, I'm going to start making a grocery list. So I spend 5 minutes making a grocery list and then I leave it at home. When I go to the grocery store, I still remember everything that I needed to get, right? Because I'm so used to remembering that I don't even need to use the organizational tool. Anyway, so huge irony that I was like literally reviewing this like half an hour ago about the reason to get organized is so that you aren't late to things and you don't forget about things. And here I am, having forgotten about something and now being late about something. But it's okay, we're here now. I'm actually thrilled to be here. So welcome to another Healthy Gamer GG stream. My name is Kanoja. Just a reminder that everything we discuss on stream today is intended to be for educational purposes only. Nothing is intended to be taken as medical advice. So let me try to figure out, so if y'all have a concern or question, please go see a licensed professional. Where do I go? Okay, so, oh, okay. All right. So here's what we're going to do today. We're going to hop in with one of our coaches, and today I'm going to be the client. So I'm tired of interviewing people, chat. I'm tired. Today I want to be interviewed. So in the past, I'm going to try to do this a little bit better, okay? In the past, I think I've actually been a far more difficult client than most people, and like it's been rough on coaches because I will be so difficult. So today I'm going to do my best to try to be a normal person instead of like Dr. K pushing coaches to the limit of like what they can deal with in terms of like difficulty. Okay. So I'm going to try to be nice to our awesome coach who's volunteered to join us today, SideKick. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to start actually with, let's start with a couple of announcements. So just a quick reminder that today is, we've got touch grass going on. So for 3 more days, we've got a photo challenge going on Discord. The goal of the photo challenge is to get out there and touch grass. So we talk a lot about, you know, theoretically what we should do in life. Like you should go out, you should meditate, you know, spend some time outside, do all these things, chat. Like, oh my God, it's good for you. It's so good for you. Oh my God, it's so good. Do good, be good, chat. And the challenge though is that like that's easier said than done. So what we've actually really done, and it's awesome, people have absolutely loved it. Probably one of our most successful Discord initiatives. So huge props to the mods and everyone who organized it, everyone who participated. So just get out of the house and do these things. So we've got a checklist of about 100 items you have to do. It's a photo challenge. It's not too late to join now. As you complete challenges, you get points. Based on points and stuff, I think we're going to have some prize giveaways and things like that. But it's different things like meditate in the park, water a plant, meditate with a friend, get a new haircut, Do things out there, journal, go hang out with people, things like that. Drink a glass of water, right? So that's important. Stay hydrated, chat. So, yeah, this is what we're going to be, this is going on. It's going to go on for 3 more days. It's not too late to join. For those of you that are thinking, oh my God, I missed the whole thing. Like, it's too late. Like, I can't accumulate enough points. Like, oh my God. Be careful about that voice in your mind. It's never too late to start, right? And the whole point is, like, you can continue doing this afterward. I mean, this is just, we're trying to use a behavioral anchor here. But the goal of this is the points are nice and things like that. So we're using some principles of gamification. But really, it's like, in this community, we want you to start building a life. And I can help you with some of it. I can explain some of it, but I can't get you to go outside, right? Dr. K ain't going to show up at your doorstep, ring your doorbell, and be like, let's go. So some of this y'all have to do yourselves. And I hate to break it to you. I wish I could do it for you, but I actually can't, right? I can try to help you. And this is where, like, thankfully, like, it's not just me trying to help you. We have an awesome mod team. We've got an awesome Discord server. We have an awesome community that is going to, like, help you get to where you want to go. All right, so check out Touchgrass. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. We've got 4, if there's mods around, we've got 4 scenarios. So what we're going to do is we're going to hop in with SideKick, and we're going to vote on which scenarios to do. We're going to try to cover maybe like 3, let's say, out of the 4. So I'm going to roleplay because I'm a master Dungeons & Dragons player. I've been playing Dungeons & Dragons since I was like 8. So I'm going to roleplay a gifted kid. I can't get motivated to do anything. I'm feeling anxious and overwhelmed about the future. And I'm burned out from a difficult and underpaying job. And so, which one do y'all want to do? So it's a gifted kid, can't get motivated to do anything, overwhelmed and anxious about the future, burned out from a difficult and underpaying job. All right, I'm going to hop in with SideKick. Yo. Can you hear me? Hey, SideKick.
Hello?
Just to clarify, I may slip up.
That's fine. I go by Steve.
May use your real name, because I know your real name, and we know each other well. And I honestly, I didn't remember who SideKick was. And I was really excited about doing this today, but seeing who SideKick actually is, I'm even more excited. So is it, if I screw up and I say your name on accident, is that okay? You're allowed to say no, and then I'm gonna devote more cognitive energy to it.
Yeah, no, it's totally fine. I go by both interchangeably these days.
Okay, so can we start by counting to 10?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Okay, awesome. So I think that's pretty good from a volume standpoint. And so how are you feeling? SideKick, you doing okay? You feeling nervous or anything?
Well, yeah. Not today. Yesterday, the week leading up to this. Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. So I'm going to go ahead and move to the interview screen so they'll be able to see you. So sure. Everyone say hello to SideKick.
I don't have chat open.
That's fine.
It will not be good for my focus.
Yeah, good. It's not good for my focus as well. So SideKick, your understanding is that, so we're going to be doing, let's try to get through like 3. Okay. Sure. So we're going to do 3 role plays. The scenarios that we're going to, actually, you know what? If you don't know what the scenarios are, we're not going to tell you which ones we picked. Okay.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and start.
Okay. I'm going to skip all the normal intro stuff for time's sake.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So what brings you into Healthy Gamer?
So I've been watching streams on YouTube for a little while, and I'm just kind of stuck. And I learned so much from that, I decided I'd kind of give coaching a shot.
Okay. What do you mean you feel stuck?
Well, like I know there's a lot of stuff that I should be doing, and I just can't do it. Like I think I'm low. I've also seen a lot of stuff on like 5-factor personality. I've watched a lot of Jordan Peterson stuff. I think I'm kind of low on the conscientiousness, and so like I just can't put my mind to things.
So you're stuck in the sense of like it's hard for you to focus on stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I can focus on some things, but I really like struggle in other areas. I'd say it's like more of like a motivational thing. Like if I get interested in something, I can focus really, really well. The problem is that I know that there's stuff that I should do that I'm just not motivated.
Okay. By the way, if you ever see me looking this way, that's where I take notes.
Okay.
So
What kind of notes are you taking?
just talking points, things
Okay.
that I might want to keep in mind or come back to. It helps me to look for patterns and stuff that we talk about. And then if I see a pattern, I can mention it to you. And then you can tell me if that pattern's real or not.
Wow, that's actually really interesting.
Yeah. So you said you watched Dr. K, you said you watched Jordan Peterson. What kind of like patterns, what stuff resonates with you when you watch that kind of content?
Well, I mean, I think that like I said, so I know I'm capable of a lot. I just can't really bring myself to do it. And what I really liked about that stuff is like I've always been really, I feel like there's been a lot of judgment from my parents, from even my friends and stuff, and like even kind of from myself. And what I kind of realized is that I just kept beating myself up for like not being able to do stuff. And that was actually kind of working. It's kind of weird. Like sometimes, when I get really frustrated with myself, I'll get this burst of motivation, or like, 2 days before the test, I'll finally like crack and I'll start studying really, really, really hard. But then even afterward, I just feel, I don't know, like I know if I had started a few days earlier, like I just know I could do better.
Okay. So it sounds like when you get stuck, it's like there's this barrier in your way, and then you have to build up enough like pressure to break it or overcome it.
Yeah, I mean, the way that I've understood it is that since I have low conscientiousness, like there's something about, something builds up and sometimes like I can motivate myself. But I think the problem is that, I've got this like, I was kind of born with this low conscientiousness.
Okay. Can you define what you mean by that for me?
Well, like there are two kinds of people, right? So there's people who are like intrinsically motivated, and when they put their mind to something, they can do it. And then like people with low conscientiousness aren't like that. So I don't know if you're kind of familiar with this area of research, but there are 5 dimensions of personality.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the dimensions is conscientiousness, and it's kind of like a scientific fact that there are like 2 groups of people. There's like disciplined people and there's lazy people.
Okay. And from the way you're describing it, it sounds like that's like a fixed quality.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean it's like it's scientific.
Okay. Have you ever studied anything about fixed or growth mindsets?
No. I mean, I know mindset is important.
Sure. Um, so uh, just so you're aware, my background's as a teacher. I taught for about 8 years. So the
Interesting.
way I run coaching sessions, a lot of times I end up teaching people things, and then we kind of wrap that back around into whatever they want to talk about. So one of the things I'd like to teach you today is about growth versus fixed mindsets, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, if you think it'll be helpful.
Yeah. So the idea of growth versus fixed mindset is understanding like growth as in the capability of becoming something different, of growing, of changing, fixed being more static, isolated, this just is the way it is kind of thing. And
Okay.
what happens with a growth mindset is you're able to kind of take criticism and use that as motivation to change something. What happens with fixed mindsets is when that criticism comes in, you view it as a static fact that you're not good enough.
Hmm.
And from what I'm hearing from a lot of the things you're saying, it sounds very much like you're in that fixed mindset place. Does that sound true to you?
Well, I mean, sort of, but like, isn't it? I mean, all this research about conscientiousness is kind of true, right? Like,
It's true in the sense that like personality theory is like really a sociological study. So it's more about trends than about hard facts.
Hmm. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't quite follow that. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. So, for example, they might say something like, oh, like the average person has this much of a conscientiousness score, but there's so many other variables that play into that and how that person would act on any individual day based on their own past experiences. So a lot of times those things break into like 70-30 categories, and you might be in the 70 or you might be in the 30, but it doesn't mean like you're hard committed to that thing. So if 70% of people who do this thing are conscientious, you might be in the 30% where you're still conscientious, but you don't do that thing.
Oh, that's kind of interesting. So I guess what you're saying is that a lot of this personality stuff is like population based, kind of.
Yeah, yeah, it's more like kind of widespread statistics
Okay.
as opposed to applying directly to one individual.
And you were saying that you think I have like a fixed mindset?
Yeah, so the idea of a fixed mindset is very static, right? So for example, what you were saying is like there's two kinds of people. There's people who are born with this intrinsic motivation and people who aren't, and you feel like you're in that not category.
Yeah, I
So the
mean,
real question is like between
that's
fixed and
interesting.
growth is, do you feel you can change that?
Well, that's interesting because my first thought is like, hold on a second, I gotta like this
Yeah,
is
take your time.
interesting because I mean I was about to say I think you're debating me a little bit because like if I were to say I can't change, then you're gonna say well that's the fixed mindset
Sure.
and it's interesting. I mean I guess because you're also calling it a mindset, right? Which means like logically it should be like changeable.
Yeah,
I mean
but there could be like different things in the way of that happening easier or not.
yeah, I mean, I guess I can change. I mean, that's why I'm here because I think that like I've seen people change. I've seen a lot of people in this community change and talk about how much they've changed. So I'm kind of like open to that. Is that something that you help me like
Yeah, for sure.
adopt a growth mindset?
Yeah, we can totally do that.
Cool.
So, uh, basically, the way this starts, and like I understand the feeling of being debated in that kind of situation. Coaching works like a choose your own adventure. So there's not like a right answer to any of my questions. We're gonna talk about whatever's in the way for any of these things. So if we're talking about a fixed versus growth mindset, and you ended up in the fixed side, that's fine. We would just start there. We would start on whatever page that is, and then move on down the choose your adventure path. And then the same thing here where you say, I do want to change, I do think it's possible. Well, great. Now we're going to start there. We're going to start with what do you want to change? So what do you want to change?
I want to be able to like motivate myself better.
Okay.
Like I want to be able to do the things that I know I should do.
So it's the I think second or third time you've used the idea of should. Where does that come from for you? Like why should you do that?
I mean, because like, look, I'm 23. I graduated a little over a year ago. I still don't have a job, right? Like, I mean, I should be moving out of my parents' place. I should be financially independent. Like, I don't know. I kind of feel like that's. I mean, isn't that just what like? We're all supposed to do something, you know? Like, it's kind of, it's kind of weird to be like where I like. This isn't where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah. But for you, like where are those shoulds coming from? Like who told you that that's a rule about life?
I don't really know. I've never really thought about that. I mean, I just, it's just, I mean, like, so first thing is like, my parents are every month, or not even every month. I mean, it used to be every day. Like they'd ask me like, hey, how's the job search going? How's the job search going? I don't think they get that it's hard. Like COVID has screwed the economy. Like, there are some jobs out there, but they pay so low that it's going to just destroy my mental and like not even going to help me move towards my goals. The jobs that I want, like I'm kind of a long shot for. part of the issue is that my major, I was really excited about one thing, but like, I think I want to kind of like make a career shift. And so there's just a lot of stuff that like, it just sometimes feels impossible. And like my parents are kind of like constantly reminding me, like, when is this happening? When is this happening? When is this happening? And then they're also saying stuff like, you can stay as long as you want to, but like, but,
Yep, always there. Yeah.
yeah. So, sometimes it's hard.
No, for sure. All of that sounds like, honestly, just a lot of pressure.
Yeah. I mean, it's, and this is the kind of thing where like, it actually really does feel that way. I mean, I feel like I'm under so much pressure, and I know that other people, like, when you feel pressure, it's like you can, that pressure moves you. And even for me, it's moved me. Like, it's like when my calculus final is coming up in like 3 days, like that moves me. Something's changed though, where like the pressure doesn't seem to be working anymore.
Sure. Yeah, so it sounds like that pressure used to be your main motivator, and now it's kind of stalled out.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it, actually. And so like now I don't know what to do because like my engine's stalling.
Mm-hmm. What if you didn't have to do all these things?
I mean, I guess that'd be great. Right? I could do what I want.
What do you want?
Damn. Not to be like this anymore. I have passions. I have interests. I have hobbies, but like I can't. Even when I like think about doing those things, like there's just so much more important stuff to do. I wish I didn't. I wish I had like won the lottery. I wish I was like born rich. I wish I could like actually do what I want to in life, as opposed to like needing to do all these things. But I don't know how to get started.
Yeah. So it sounds like all of these things like that create this pressure from you, from your family, from your friends, from society. It's created so much pressure that now you can't move. And there are things that you want to do. There are things that you want to get out there and be a part of and progress in life and all of that, but you're paralyzed.
Yeah, I mean, is that something you? Yeah, I mean, I never really thought about it that way, but you're kind of almost making it sound like it's not my fault.
Do you feel like it is your fault?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, like I'm the one responsible, right? Like I'm the one who wakes up in the morning and like, plays games until 1 p.m. and then like tries to apply for a couple of jobs and then like plays games until midnight. So, I mean, clearly it's my fault, right? Like who else's fault is it going to be?
That's a lot to put on yourself.
I mean, but isn't it true?
To put all the pressures of society and like it's your fault?
Are you saying it's society's fault?
I'm actually a big fan of saying it's no one's fault.
How does that work?
Well, essentially when we talk about fault, we're talking about blame. And blame doesn't help us. Blame lets us discharge anger or frustration or hurt. It doesn't actually help us move forward. So whose fault something is doesn't actually help you deal with the fact that that's still a problem in your life.
Wow, I've never really thought about it that way. Teach me more.
Yeah. This is my favorite part of coaching. So, let's go back to the pressure idea. We've talked about all this pressure. It all exists, all this stuff. I'm going to kind of throw some generalities out there. Please correct me if any of these don't apply to you. But usually what happens with this kind of situation is we use pressure, we use shame, all these other things as negative motivation in our lives. And the reason we use negative motivation is because it works, because it's easy, right? It's like getting fast food on the way home. Like it works and it's easy. We all know it's unhealthy, but we do it anyway, right? So we use this negative motivation as a way to get ourselves to do things, whether it's study for a test, apply for a job, talk to a girl, doesn't matter, any of the things, right? So when we use that negative motivation, the actual problem with it, the reason we call it negative motivation is that it builds up these negative emotions within us, and then we build up tolerance or avoidance to those emotions. As humans, our natural instinct is to avoid things that are uncomfortable. So I don't want to go near my shame. Shame feels bad. I'm going to go over here instead. I'm going to go play a game. I'm going to go see a movie. I'm going to do whatever else, right? And so as you build up this tolerance to your pressure, your negative motivation, you need more and more pressure or negative motivation to overcome it.
Huh. Interesting. So by
does
negative,
that feel like it's you?
yeah, I mean, it feels like every time I have to, that's so interesting. Like every time I feel like it takes more to get me to motivate myself. Like,
it's true.
You know, because like the urgency has to be like bigger and bigger and bigger. And at some point it almost feels like too overwhelming. And then like, I just don't know how to start.
Yeah. I think if I was going to take a guess here, part of the reason you don't know how to start is because all of that pressure turns into expectation for how the thing is going to end before you've even taken step one.
I'm kind of confused. What do you mean by that? What
so
do
you have
mean
all this pressure
turns...
on yourself about finding a job, being independent, moving out, all of these other things. What happens is those turn into expectations. You expect yourself to do it. You think your parents expect you to do it, whether that's overtly displayed or kind of passively displayed or whatever it might be. And then now we're looking at the result of you getting a job and moving out as a you must do that. It's an expectation.
But isn't that, I mean, how else am I supposed to know what to do? Like,
so it's not that you can't move that direction. It's again that if that is what you're evaluating yourself on is, have I already moved out? Have I already gotten a job? Have I already done all those things? Well, right now you haven't. So right now it's going to go back to that negative emotion. It's going to go back to shame. It's going to go back to pressure.
So how do I change that?
We have to flip it so that you're working on where you are now, not working on where you want to be.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
How do I flip it?
Way better. So the first step for this is like, it's a really simple trick. And people, this is another debated thing. People never believe me when I tell them it's this easy. You have to be already good enough.
What?
The example I always use for this is like job interviews, right? So in a job interview, people oftentimes view that as I'm going to the job interview so they can tell me if I'm good enough for that job or not. And
Okay.
that's actually the wrong way to look at it, because you're letting that person and the result of that interview judge you.
But wait,
When you go in, sorry, go ahead.
But like, I mean, isn't that exactly the point of a job interview, to see if you're good enough for the
Nope.
job? How does
Job interview,
how does that work, bro?
The job interview is the opportunity for the interviewer to see that you are good enough. You're already good enough. They might see it and they might not. And this is where we get back to mindset. It's your mindset going into the interview. Are you good enough, or are you going to let that person tell you whether or not you're good enough?
But like, how do I know if I'm good enough?
That's where we start working. Because
This is some crazy stuff, man.
We're going to loop it all in, trust me. So you said you know you're capable, but you can't do it. Right? You said there's a lot of judgment.
I see what you're doing. You're looking at the notes.
I was right over there, yeah. So, and then the whole two kinds of people thing, the people who get it done and the people who don't, right? Again, that's results-based. Right? So when you're looking at yourself, because these things don't exist yet, they can one day. We're going to talk about yet another coaching session. But because they don't exist yet, you're judging yourself as not good enough before you even get there.
Wait, I'm kind of if are you kind of saying, but like, isn't whether you're good enough, isn't that what determines whether you get there?
No, you're good enough whether you get there or not.
That's
You're
not,
enough right now, here, today.
how can you say that? You just met me.
Sure. But I already know that you're good enough.
But you don't know anything about me.
Do I need to know more?
Well, I mean, like, don't you? Like, I'm so confused. Like, what do you mean I'm good enough?
So this is kind of the issue with judgment, is that a lot of times we use it as results-based. The reason why it's easy for me to say you're good enough today is because I'm not going to use any judgment when I make that decision.
But isn't that what good enough means? Isn't it good enough judgment?
Good enough is judgment when you kind of let the results impact whether or not you feel good enough.
So you're saying it's like about how I feel about myself?
Yep. Just like the growth versus fixed mindset.
I'm confused. So are you saying that whether I'm good enough doesn't have to do with whether I get the job or not?
Correct.
Okay, let's pause for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic job, SideKick. How did it feel for you?
Good. Still a little nervous, but I'm okay.
So a couple of things I just want to point out. So I've never, I don't know if have I ever seen you coach before?
Not since training.
Okay. So first of all, I really want to just say, like, I mean, I know you're good, right? So we get feedback. I hear about some of the clients that you work with in case review and things like that. So I know how thoughtful you are. I also understand you run office hours or case review or something at times, right?
I did it for one of the new cohorts.
Okay.
I run the social Sandbox thing in the main Discord.
Okay. So you've stepped into a teaching role in a couple places, which we totally, understand. I mean, I know I get, because we know you're good. But what I really want to say is I really appreciate, and just for people who are watching, how much you actually teach. So a couple of things for people to understand: not every coach teaches as much as SideKick does, and that's actually okay. So part of what we really appreciate is that each coach has particular strengths and weaknesses. But I think that you do a really good job of like introducing some of these concepts. And I don't know that as the client, I fully understood what you were saying, because the concepts are just so foreign to the way that I've been thinking my entire life, right?
Sure.
So some of the things you did a really good job of, I felt myself breaking apart in terms of like my beliefs about the world. I didn't find myself believing what you were saying yet. It was more confusing than anything else. But I think actually what you did very fast, which is actually very, very good, is that a lot of times what holds people back, and hopefully people who are understanding, I know you understand this, so I'm sort of more saying this to chat and stuff, is that it's our conceptions of ourselves, right? It's the idea that when I go into the job interview, I'm trying to prove something instead of believing, hey, like I actually bring something to the table. I bring real value to this company. I can help out a lot. And if they don't want to see that, or if it's not what they're looking for, that has nothing to do with my intrinsic value, right? If I'm sitting there in the job interview, there's something that they've already seen that makes them want to call me in for the interview. So you did a really good job of sort of attacking this idea of results equals being valuable. And the interesting thing about the motivation, and you didn't get there. I mean, you got really, really fast, really far, and I know you know this, but
I probably went a little too quick with some of those things because I'm trying to cover it a lot faster than I would in normal coaching.
Yeah. So I think that was a bit fast, but I think it's great, and I think your strength as a teacher really kind of shines through. But I think the key thing that I really want to commend you in is about 20 or 30 minutes. I came into this interview being skeptical myself. I came into this interview thinking that this wouldn't help me. I'm going to try it because I'm desperate, but deep in my heart, I was like I didn't, I wasn't like, okay, let's go. Like it was all like a veneer. And so the one thing that you really did very, very good, and I think very quickly, is confuse the hell out of me. And it's when
my favorite thing to do.
Yeah. So it's like, you know, if we want to rebuild the right kind of mindset, the first thing that we have to do is pull apart all the puzzle pieces, because then we can start the process of like putting them back together in a healthier way. And so the, you know, a couple things I want to say, you did a good job of helping me understand that, hold on a second, maybe some of my assumptions are not as held in stone as I thought. You did a good job of moving me from kind of pre-contemplative to contemplative. So I came in knowing all the answers, but knowing all the answers led me to the wrong conclusion. So the first thing that you've got to do in coaching, which once again, you did a really good job of, is helping people, introducing doubt into their worldview. Because if I'm like a doomer, or like I think that nothing's ever going to work for me, like you can't let people continue thinking that way. And the way that you do that is by actually introducing doubt, introducing new concepts, getting people to do it. I think you did a really good job of actually, first of all, you know, you take good notes, you use your notes really well. You did a really good job of, when you were explaining certain things, tossing in personal experiences that kind of emotionally hit home. So you talked about parents, you talked about pressure, you offered empathy, which is not something that I get at all. And that too is very perplexing. It's like, what do you mean it's not my fault? Like, what on earth? Like, the whole world is telling me I'm at fault. I wake up every single day and I tell myself it's not my fault. The concept that actually my position in life has more to do than my actions. And I know where you're going to go with this, because over time, ultimately, what you want to do is help people understand there is a contribution that you make, but there are things that you don't control as well. And the problem is when clients start to assume responsibility for the whole world that they can't change, that's when they really start to feel devastated. So a fantastic job. Any thoughts from your end? Was I hard on you? I was afraid.
Oh no, I think it was good. If anything, I think there was like, maybe this is just me. I felt like there were almost too many directions for me to go in as a coach. Like I have like a lot of things that I was like, okay, I know like in a few sessions we're gonna get into this, and then a few sessions we're gonna get into control, and then we're gonna talk about like should statements and like all these other things. Like I can see like down the line that's where I would go with this client.
Yeah. So can you explain to us what were the directions you saw and what you think the value in some of those directions are? Just toss out a couple.
Yeah. So should statements is a big one. I talk to a lot of people about this. I'm not going to go into the whole spiel I would do in coaching, but the basics behind should statements is they're actually just not true. They're ways we feel about something, but like when we say like, oh, people like should do this thing, or I should have done that thing, that's not a fact about the world, but we treat it like it is. And then when we see the real world and that thing is not true, then it's really, really hard for us to cope with that. Right? I should have a job and I don't. Right? And then that brings up tons of shame and other negative emotions and all that kind of stuff. So really helping clients identify should statements and start to tweak them. I call it changing it to a statement of fact. Right? So instead of I should have a job, say like I want to have a job and I don't, and that's hard. Because that's actually true. Right? You
Beautiful
don't have a
reframe.
job and it is hard. But the I should have a job part isn't true. That's like societal pressure, internal pressure, wherever it might come from for that person. The other thing that I noted was control and understanding. Like this is like we kind of touched on a little bit when we were talking about results-based ideas, right? And in fact, we don't control results of basically anything. We control our actions. So you can't control what happens. You can control what you do about it. And so in this case, with this client, we would have gone into like with goal setting. It's not get a job by X date. It's apply for this many jobs this week. Because that's something you can control. That's an action.
And Steve, do you find, I know this is going to like, please be honest. Do you find that works with people?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that.
I feel like there's so much that we do as a society that puts these pressures, these expectations on people, and then nobody ever tells them that it's actually okay. It's fine. It doesn't matter if what you want to do is like you want to do art and you're just going to work at McDonald's and then like have a studio somewhere and do art. That's fine. Like it doesn't matter what all these things come from, but like nobody's ever been told that. Nobody's ever been told that that's acceptable. And so they put all this pressure on themselves either internally or it was put on them by their parents or other things in life. And again, all of those things usually come from results-based ideas.
So, Steve, if I can, and by all means protect your client's privacy. So,
Sure.
I'm going to ask you for a question. If you feel like you can answer it, try to make it a little bit chimerical. Have we talked about this before?
Not sure what the question is, but I'll try.
Yeah, basically, I'm kind of curious, like, what have you actually seen your clients accomplish in terms of, I mean, do people have, are they working at McDonald's and doing studios? And you're welcome to change a couple of the details to protect privacy. That's what I mean by chimerical.
So I've seen clients who thought they would never move out from their parents' house, move out. I've seen clients who, like thought they couldn't graduate and like get their stuff together and graduate. Or also, I think to me, some of the more like moving ones are the ones who realize like, I don't even want to graduate. Like college was never a thing I wanted to do in the first place. I'm actually cool just like going and having a job and like living my life. And that's personally the things that I find most like inspiring, I guess, is when we can ask those questions and people will realize like this isn't something I want to do. Why am I even doing it? I'm doing it because I was forced to. I'm doing it because my parents told me I had to, or whatever other thing in life. And so, yeah, those are kind of the most ones that stick out in my brain. I would say there's also, I've had clients who had more severe emotional stuff, and just telling them that that stuff's real and it's okay to pursue therapy for it, because so many people in life think like, oh, I've been through this, but other people have been through worse things. Right? And just being that person who tells them, no, that's real, like, and it's okay for you to go to therapy, like,
wow,
is really impactful for people.
Cool, man. I'm so honored to have you doing this work and helping our community and stuff like that.
I'm just thrilled to have the opportunity, man. I love it here.
Yeah, and we love having you. Shall we try again?
Sure.
Okay,
Run it back.
Once again into the breach. Okay, so I think our other scenarios. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective, SideKick.
Yeah. Do you want me to mute?
Nope.
So that I don't hear the scenario?
Oh, yeah. Sure, I'll mute.
Okay.
Okay, so that was can't get motivated to do anything. Gifted kid, anxious and overwhelmed about the future, and burnt out from a difficult, underpaying job. I think next up, let's do, I think anxious and overwhelmed about the future was the next one, right? Okay. Let's take it away.
Okay.
Okay. Your camera's blurry, by the way.
Oh, sorry. It does that sometimes. It focuses on my water bottle. Just weird camera things. We'll see if I can reset it like
the
this.
water bottle is the real coach, and SideKick is the sidekick.
Come on, camera.
There we go.
Hey,
Hey.
What brings you into coaching?
Let me remember for a second. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I just don't know where to start.
Okay.
I lost my job during the pandemic. I'm engaged to be married. And I'm not so sure about that anymore. I can go into more detail if you want. I think I just don't know. It felt like my life was going pretty well, but like now I was doing all the things that I'm supposed to do, but like now I'm just not really sure about stuff. And so I've seen a lot of stuff, a lot of the videos on YouTube and stuff. Like I found the program through YouTube. A lot of that stuff I think really helped me, and I kind of need help. I saw a therapist. They diagnosed me with something, and I got started on medication. And I think that the medication is like helping some, but it's not like, I don't know, it's just not doing, it doesn't change the world, right? So it's like helping me cope some and things like that. But like at the end of the day, I don't know. I recently, we bought a house, my fiance and I, and like we're in a part of the world where actually like the climate seems to be changing quite a bit. So our power bills are very, very high this year. I'm not sure if I actually like want to live here, but like we've moved here now. I'm not really sure, like, once again, like, I was looking for things in my industry, but I'm not really kind of sure because I lost this job, and people say it's kind of pandemic related, but I haven't really been able to find a new one yet. And like, should I move? Should I not move? Like, I just don't know. I'm kind of like scared about, like, I feel like I used to know, like, things were
Sure.
kind of laid out, right? Like, you do A and then you do B and then you do C. But now I'm just not sure. Like, I don't know what the right answer is.
It sounds like there's kind of a lot of things that got tossed up in the air all at once.
Yeah, it certainly feels that way. It's like one thing after another after another. Felt like, a house of cards tumbling down.
Yeah. Before we get into any of this, the first thing I actually want to say is, like, that's a lot, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
You doing okay?
I mean, honestly, not really. Right? I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, would I be here if I was doing okay?
I don't make assumptions, but so you say you're not doing okay. What does that feel like to you?
Not good.
Is there anything in particular that comes up? Any emotions, any feelings, any ideas?
I mean, it's just like not knowing what's coming next.
It's kind of that uncertainty factor.
Yeah, like, I don't know if, like, did I make a mistake buying this house? Am I in the wrong relationship? Like, I'm kind of questioning that. Like, should I move to, like, stay in this industry, or should I try to make a career change? Is this kind of thing where it's like, okay, now that the pandemic is kind of wrapping up, like, I'll be able to find a job again. Like, I just don't know, I don't know what the right answer is.
Sure. So I don't honestly, I don't know that there is a right answer with all of these things in life. Like, we make choices, but, like, no one can predict the future. No one really knows what's going to happen. So you kind of just you do what you can.
I was kind of hoping you could tell me the right answer.
Oh, I promise I'll never lie to you.
Okay.
One thing I do want to do is reflect some of this back, because I just wanted to give you the rundown of all the things you just kind of rattled off. So you said you lost your job, you're engaged, but part of that's feeling really uncertain now. You saw a therapist and got diagnosed with a thing. Bought a house, and now you're not sure you want to live there. And climate change is changing a lot of stuff about where you are. And you're also a little bit unsure about your career and prospects moving forward there.
Yeah, I mean, when you say that back to me, it seems like I'm kind of fucked.
I wouldn't say you're fucked. I'd say that's a lot. And one of the difficult things about when stuff like this happens in life is we feel like we have to solve all these problems right now today. And the legitimate answer is you can't. You can't solve it all at once. There's actually this great clip I share with a lot of my clients, and out of game, this is where I would normally share a clip from Dr. K's stream, where he talks about this idea of don't go past 3. Right? You focus on one thing at a time. And if you can fix that, that's great. Or you can focus on 2, or you can focus on 3, but you can't go past 3. There's too many things. You don't have enough energy to actually handle all of them. And if we think about, like, you have a mana pool or motivation or energy or however we want to, like, relate this thing, if you can divide it between 2 or 3 things, you got a lot more resource to work with. If you're dividing it between 6 or 7 different things and all of them are uncertain, it's going to feel really overwhelming, man.
Yeah. Okay. So assume you shared that clip.
Yeah.
You explained it beautifully, by the way.
Thank you.
Before we go back into character. Okay, so you shared the clip. Okay, so yeah, I don't know. I mean, it definitely does feel overwhelming. Like, where do you think I should start?
So I can't tell you where to start. I think whatever of these topics, the ones that you've mentioned, the ones that I've relayed back to you, stands out to you as the most important, what resonates with you the most, is a great place to just start thinking. Not even taking actions yet, just thinking.
Well, I mean, the thing that's, like, weighing me down the most is, like, do I actually get married or not? Because, like,
Sure.
that wedding is coming up. It's 4 months away. So we're going to get married around Thanksgiving. And I'm having second thoughts.
Are your second thoughts specific to something or just kind of generalized?
Well, I mean, I'm absolutely, in a lot of ways, I know that this is the person for me. Like, there's not anything in a sense wrong in our relationship, but we had talked about having kids, and I used to be on board with having kids. But honestly, with everything that's going on, like, I don't feel comfortable bringing children like into this world. And so I know my partner really wants kids. I want them too. I just kind of feel like it's irresponsible, and it's caused, like, we've been kind of like, I guess talking about it is what we call it, but really it's an argument. We've been arguing about it because my partner is trying to convince me that we should have kids, and I just don't think that's a good idea. And so they're also sort of saying, like, okay, even if you don't want to do it now, like, we're not, we weren't talking about having it soon, having them soon anyway, but like they're sort of saying, like, okay, it's like, if now isn't the right time, like, that's okay. Like, we can do it later. Whereas, like, I don't think they get it, that I'm not sure if I ever want to have kids. And so what's sort of happening is they're kind of saying, like, it's okay. Like, you'll come around. But like, I don't think they're really getting it, that I'm not sure that this is ever a good idea.
And this is a new feeling for you?
Kinda, yeah. I mean, because we talked about it before, but like now that things are kind of becoming a little bit more real, and it's like, like financially, like, we're not in the best place. My partner is thankfully has had their job for a while, like, they're stable and stuff like that. I've been kind of struggling there, and like I know things will turn around, but they just, but what if they don't?
Scary question.
Yeah. I don't know what to do. What if they don't? Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, should I move? Should I not move? Like, I don't know what the right answer is.
Yeah. So again, I'm not sure that there is a right answer. And I'm not going to tell you, like, I'm never going to get to the point where I tell you, like, oh, you need to split from your partner, or you definitely need to marry your partner. Like, we don't give advice like that here. What we can do is we can talk it out and more explore, like, where you are with it and what you would or wouldn't be comfortable moving forward with.
Yeah,
I was going to say, so in this case, it sounds like there's a lot of those what ifs, not even specific to the partner. I mean, obviously that is a big one. What if partner? What if about kids? But it kind of sounds like everything in your life was, like, very recently called into question.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, honestly, like, I feel like my life is kind of falling apart. And it used to be so together. And like, I don't know what happened, but just one thing after the next, after the next, after the next.
It's really hard, man.
Sorry, I made the mistake of looking at chat.
All the chat.
I shouldn't look at it either, but it's just too good. All right.
So yeah, that sounds really, really hard.
Yeah. So, I mean, what is that something you can help me with?
Yeah, I think we can definitely help with that. So the what ifs are really, really difficult because when we get into that kind of mindset, our brain's natural mechanism is to look for threats. Right? It's kind of where, like, our lizard monkey brain takes over, and it's like, what's going to hurt me? A way I usually describe this to people is, like, our brains are designed to look for what's not there. It's not designed to look for what we have. If you have all the food in the world, your brain doesn't think about food. Your brain thinks, where's the fresh water? Right? That's how we're designed. So now we have to kind of figure out within what's going on with you, you're looking around and you're seeing all of these potential threats. And there are things that are in your life that are not too bad, but there are also things that are potential threats in the future, and it's really hard to look at anything else when you see those things that could potentially hurt you.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, like, but I mean, the threats are real, right? Like, climate change is real,
Yeah.
you know, like, I've been collecting unemployment for like 8 months. So I'm kind of confused. Like, are you saying that I shouldn't be worried about that, or?
In this case, it's not that like you shouldn't be worried about it. It's more of a question of like what's the problem right now that you can actually interact with.
Well, I mean, right now the problem I need to interact with is I need to figure out if I'm going to call off this wedding or not.
Yeah. So
You
climate
know.
change exists. Climate change is real. Climate change is not a thing that you can solve or interact with today. So
So
it's not that I'm saying like don't like think about it or don't worry about it, but if we're going to like look at things to focus on and work on, we want to deal with what's here and now, which in this case is your relationship and your partner, your wedding, kids, all those ideas. I mean, not technically kids, but the decision about whether or not you want to have kids. But climate change is much more of a distant issue that you can worry about eventually, or you can like go and be an advocate for if that's something you're really passionate about.
but how do I decide whether like I should delay the wedding, or like what do I do about that?
Sure. So I think with things like this, communication is going to be a huge deal. And what sounds like is happening between you and your partner, obviously I've never been there, I've never seen the two of you talk to each other, but what sounds like is happening is you're kind of on opposite sides of this issue. And
Yeah,
then when you meet to talk about it, you don't really talk about where the other person is, you just talk about where you are.
I don't quite follow you. Can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. So when you get to this conversation with your partner, you're in the place of, I'm not sure I want to bring kids in this world. I don't know about this, all of those kinds of things. And your partner's in the position of, oh, you're going to come around. You still want kids. It's fine.
Well, yeah, I mean, kind of.
So a lot of times what's missing in conversations like this is curiosity. So being curious about the other person and having the other person being curious about you is what's going to help that conversation move forward instead of turning into an argument.
But I can't make her curious.
No, you can't.
So
But you can talk to your partner about, hey, when we have these conversations, it's really hard for me because of whatever the thing that happens is.
I'm that sounds good, but I'm not quite sure how to do that.
Okay,
Can you tell me what you mean by that a little bit?
sure. So the first step to kind of getting to this point with your partner is kind of having like honestly a little more of a meta conversation about it, where you're not even really going to talk about the kids issue. You're going to talk about, hey, what's the like meta when we talk about kids, right? This is the pattern I've seen where like we don't really talk about it. It actually turns into an argument.
Hmm.
And then I don't want to assume things about you because we just met, but saying something like, hey, when you tell me uh, that, oh, I will want kids in the future or whatever, that might make me feel bad or invalidated or upset or ignored or whatever the thing is, right? So it's up to you to decide and kind of think about how you feel when your partner says those things. But before you have the conversation about kids, you want to kind of have the meta conversation about how are we communicating.
Okay. So kind of just point out to her that we're not communicating well,
Yeah,
and maybe try to figure out, like, can you help me, like, almost with some, like, how do you say that? I mean, when you're explaining it to me, it makes sense, but I feel like if I try to say that, like, she's gonna feel like I'm accusing her of not being a good communicator.
mm-hmm.
Like sometimes I feel like that could kind of spiral out of control pretty easily.
Sure.
Like,
So do you want to practice by talking to me like I'm her?
I mean, I don't even know what to. That sounds like a good idea, but like I wouldn't even know where to start.
Okay. So you can start with saying, "Hey, I want to have a conversation about like our communication or whatever the way you want to phrase it is." and just seeing what the response is there.
Okay. Okay, so
Do you want to try that one on, or do you want me to keep going?
yeah, let's try that. So like, hey,
Go ahead.
I want to have a conversation about how we're communicating.
Okay. Yeah, we can talk after dinner.
But then what do I say?
Okay. So after dinner comes around. Right. So you wanted to talk about our communication. Like, what's going on?
I feel like we're not seeing eye to eye about this whole kids issue.
Yeah, I mean, we were in the same place and now we're not, but you'll come around.
Well, I mean, but I don't know that I want to come around.
Okay. So we're going to back out of the meta conversation. So when the conversation goes this way, you really want to state, hey, this is what I want to talk about today, not the kid thing.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Right?
So
you kind of have to steer the ship a little.
Okay. Okay. So like, don't focus on the communication, not get into the kid thing.
Exactly.
Let's pause.
Sure.
Okay. Fantastic job. SideKick. How was that for you?
It was good. Honestly, I really wanted to get into some other stuff, but then we kind of just like headed down the partner path, and like that's where we are.
What did you want to get into?
So I really wanted to get more into like the overall like, hey, your life is in upheaval, so you're going to question everything idea.
Okay.
Which might be related to the kids thing and might not. Obviously, I don't know the client well enough yet. And then the other thing, especially with things like mental health, is obviously a big one where if I'm being honest with myself, I intentionally avoided talking about control because we kind of did it with the last
Yeah, good.
roleplay.
I'm glad.
But like control is a big part of this too. And understanding like when that sense of control gets like thrown off, especially when it's like, hey, you have control of nothing in life, not your marriage, not your house, not the climate, not even your mental health. It's a lot, man. So like I really would have loved to go into control again. And
Shocking. SideKick, are you saying that sometimes there are common themes between clients?
Oh, extremely common. So like should statements or circles of control or whichever other iteration I get into, I've probably given to 80% of my clients.
Cool. So was that, have you worked with clients like this before whose life feels like they're kind of, it's kind of falling apart?
Yeah. And usually it kind of goes like this actually, where we'll start with one small thing that they're willing to like start taking actions on again. And we kind of use that as an example. Like it doesn't actually matter if that conversation goes well or not, if they have it with their spouse or not. What matters is we start talking about what actions can you take. And again, it's more of a reframing, getting that focus back on like what can you do as opposed to, hey, everything sucks and you can't do anything about it.
That's beautifully said. So I just want to highlight this. So for people who are listening, we have this really interesting pattern in coaching where clients will come in and they'll be like, I'm stuck. And then suddenly like week 6 rolls around, week 7 rolls around, and they start doing stuff. And what tends to happen is, I think, kind of like SideKick is doing, if you listen to this client, they're kind of coming in and saying, I don't know what to do because things are so uncertain. So by focusing on one thing and almost like directing their attention to something very, very minute, okay, let's go into the specifics of having a conversation. And then let's say I do that role play. Let's say we role play the conversation. I go and I have the conversation. The subtle thing that you're actually doing there, which I think is really important, is that even if the conversation goes well or doesn't go well, what you've actually showed me and demonstrated is that I can still do something about it. So like it almost shifts the attention from, okay, I've got these 15 different things and I don't even know where to start. I don't know what the right answer is. And you did this really, really well, where you didn't like tell me like, okay, if you say this thing, it'll fix everything. And
Yeah.
Right. But you still got me thinking about, okay, like I'm actually going to do this tonight with my partner and we're going to have a conversation about it. And so even though I may think in that moment that, okay, this may not work, it's not about it not working. It's about getting the client to start acting. And if the client keeps acting, keeps trying, keeps having those conversations, like suddenly they've had one conversation, that'll turn into 2 conversations. I'm sure you'll do that around work-related stuff. You'll do that around climate-related stuff, whatever, right? And so it's about getting the client to start moving forward. maybe having a conversation with their provider about, if they're unsatisfied with treatment. One thing.
Yeah, one of the things
Yeah, go ahead.
I talk about with almost all my clients in like session 1 or 2 when we start doing goals is I'm always going to ask you how it went. And I don't care if it failed miserably or if you totally forgot or if you thought about it and then didn't want to do it. I'm always going to ask you how it went. And that's not coming from a place of judgment. It's because, like, if you got it done, great, let's talk about it. If it failed miserably, great, let's talk about it. If it didn't happen, great, let's talk about what got in the way.
So
and it always gives you a place to go.
And yeah, so tell me a little bit about the advantage of a great, because that's kind of foreign, right? Like, even if it went miserable, like your response as a coach is the same. Great.
Yep.
What you do afterward is different.
Yep.
So what does that do for the client when, if they succeeded, great. If they didn't do it at all, great. And if they failed miserably, great. What does that do for your clients?
So I think what it does is it removes a lot of that expectation, right? Kind of going back to what we talked about with the first client, where there's like, oh, we're going to make a goal, and if you don't do it, you're a bad client, right? Or if you don't do it, then it means you're not actually trying on your mental health, and now you're like ashamed of yourself, or think like, why am I even coming to coaching? Or, right? It leads to a lot of negative places. So one of the things I try to do is like be that positive, non-judgmental force in their life. Of like, hey, it doesn't matter if you show up like 5 minutes late and you're super hectic and you're very apologetic, like, it's okay. I'm not judging you. If you show up and you're like, hey, I didn't do the goal, I totally forgot about it, it just slipped my mind, I'm not going to be like, damn, this dude doesn't actually care about coaching. I'm going to be like, okay, cool. Like, do you want to try that goal again this week? Or do you want to move on to something else? Right? We'll ask about like, well, what got in the way? Did you get super busy, but like you still want to do this goal? Or are you just not feeling this goal? And like, let's talk about how we can do it differently.
Yeah, that's really important. I think one thing, the SideKick, that I don't know. So I know that there's a certain artificiality to this. So I also imagine that you probably ask more questions, I'm guessing, with.
Yeah. Here I'm trying to get like into stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's a role play and we have like 20 minutes per scenario.
Yeah. So
normally it's a lot slower.
So one thing that I would encourage you to do for the next one, right? So is like, let's actually move slower. So I left a couple of doors open that I noticed you didn't go into, which I think makes sense because I understand what you're, but basically don't let me get away with ambiguity for the next one. Okay. So let's try to,
yeah. One of the things I wanted to touch on actually is like saw a therapist, got diagnosed with a thing. And it was like, okay. And like,
yes,
like you don't got to tell me what the thing is, but like it sounds like you don't like that this happens.
Yeah, right. You picked up. Yeah. So let's try to. So instead of like focusing so much on solutions and plans and stuff like that, let's try to dig in a little bit more. Okay.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, so. Okay, so I'm gonna just check in with chat real quick. So I'm gonna mute.
Yeah.
Okay, and no lip reading. Okay, so we're gonna do burnout and imposter syndrome. I need to add some kind of flavor because otherwise I think this is gonna get a little. It could get redundant. So I'm going to do burnout and imposter syndrome. Does that work, chat? Okay. All right, SideKick, let's go.
Okay. Hey, what brings you into coaching?
I don't know if I can do it anymore.
Do what?
This whole rat race thing.
Okay. What's the rat race?
So I work at an auditing firm. And, normally it's like we've got one busy time of year, which is around like tax time in the US. That's in April. But like recently it's just been nuts. And I feel like the busy season is supposed to be over. And I was powering through. But like even now, like we're almost in August. And it feels like the busy season just doesn't stop.
So you feel like you're just constantly doing all the things?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, like before it used to be a busy season, but now it's like busy season never ends, and I just don't know like if I can keep this up.
So what is the rat race, if you don't mind like elaborating on that a little more?
Well, so like, look, I'm in auditing, so we get, you know, clients and contracts and stuff like that. And part of the problem is that, you know, obviously the more contracts we get, it's better for business. But so I'm kind of at I'm sort of like there's 4 rungs on the ladder. So there's like the co-owners of the business, and then there's like the upper management. And then I'm kind of right below that. So I'm sort of more junior management, and I work with a couple, I have 3 people under me. And so I know kind of that, like, obviously it's good for business if we get more business. But the problem is that a lot of the people beneath me, you know, they need a lot of like hand holding. I have to do a lot of teaching, things like that. So like, and I kind of have to like check their work. And so it's kind of good for people at the top, the more business that we get. But I feel like I'm getting squeezed because the people beneath me kind of aren't really doing the best job. And the people above me, you know, aren't really doing heavy lifting. And so everything kind of falls to me.
Sounds like a lot of pressure.
I mean, it honestly, it's not even really pressure. It's just like, when is this going to end? Like, I kind of feel like I need a break. Like, I took a week of vacation a few weeks ago, and that, you know, it was great while I was on vacation. But like the second I come back, like even before I come back, I know that even when I go on vacation, it's not like someone else is doing my work for me, right? The work that, like, what's going to happen is like I had assigned a bunch of tasks before I went out, and come Monday morning, like I'm going to have a pile of work that's built up over the week that I still have to get through. So it's not really a real vacation. It's just, you know, it's
delaying.
Yeah. And so like, you know, I don't know how long I can keep this up.
How do you feel about it?
I mean, I feel like I just can't, I don't know how I can keep doing this, you know? And people will say like, oh, you know, I recognize that I'm lucky, right? Because I've still got a job. I was promoted recently and things like that. And like people have also told me that, you know, like I'm a HyPo is what they call it.
High performer?
Yeah. High potential. So I've been flagged at my company as someone who has high potential and like leadership track and all this kind of stuff. You know, but I'm not sure.
Sure. So I know this is going to be a repeat question, but I'm not sure you mentioned much of like your own feelings in there. So how do you feel about all of that?
I mean, I don't, like I said, I can't, I don't know if I can keep this up. You know, I'm sorry if that's a repeat answer, but.
No, you're okay.
You know, like I'm not sure is how I feel about it. Like I've been flagged with this thing, and that's, you know, it's great, but like I just don't know. You know, I don't know if I am what they think I am.
Okay. What do you think you are?
On the struggle bus.
All right. That's okay.
I mean, is it though? Like, I don't think so. Right? Like, I don't know how long I can stay on the struggle bus. You know, when I come in on Monday morning and my juniors kind of like, when they give me this pile of work, like, I'm not excited. You know, I don't know if I can, you know, like, I feel like I used to have passion for what I do. I used to be able to really apply myself. I used to grind, and like, I just can't grind the way that I used to.
Sure. So you said the HyPo thing. Are you familiar with like any of the content here that we've covered, or any other stuff on YouTube? Or
Yeah,
Twitch,
actually, it's a lot of that stuff that actually like about high potential and gifted kids and things like that. Like, so I'm really looking to find some work-life balance. Like, I want to learn how to meditate. I want to learn how to do all these things because, you know, I know that if I kind of do better, right? Like if I meditate more, if I figure some of this stuff out, if I get like my mental sort of sorted out, I can get kind of back on track.
Okay. So those are kind of the high potential videos that have appealed to you.
Yeah. Some of the stuff on, imposter syndrome too.
Sure. Yeah, I was going to ask about like the imposter syndrome thing because you mentioned like other people see this in you, but on your side of it, it's like struggle bus.
Yeah, I mean, they say kind of fake it until you make it, and the problem is, I've been faking it for a while. Like I thought I should have made it by now, but like I don't know if that's coming around.
Sure.
It feels like fake it and just keep on faking it.
So it sounds like there's kind of a lot of like uncertainty there for you internally.
I mean, honestly, it feels like a ticking time bomb.
So you feel like it's inevitable, like eventually this thing's going to break apart.
I mean, yeah, like, because things aren't, I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to be doing to get things better, and things just aren't getting better. So, it's like every day when I go into work, I have to drag myself into work. I'm terrified. So every Tuesday afternoon, we have like sort of like a huddle. And like, I'm afraid that during the huddle, like people are going to realize that I'm kind of dropping balls right and left. I kind of skate past every single week, and it's just like if people asked one or two more questions, then, it's like I kind of get lucky quite a bit actually. And
You feel like the whole high potential thing is just a big facade.
well, yeah, I mean, I used to believe it, but now it's like, this is not the way that a high potential person acts, right? This is not actually the way that they perform. And so I was really excited at first. And I felt like my work was recognized, but as time has gone on, it's like, I'm not so sure. I kind of wonder if they made a mistake.
Sure. Do you know when that feeling switched?
Probably about a year ago.
And what was happening then?
I mean, so I'd been there for 2 years, and usually like when you go from analyst to associate, which is what my position is, like that review happens kind of like at 2 years. So like I first went in and I was like super excited. I liked the field that I was in. It's kind of like being a financial investigator. I really used to like auditing, and I sort of still do, but something about it just feels off. And then a year ago, I really started to it started to get tough. It felt like I knew how to grind as an analyst, but I wasn't sure exactly how do you grind as an associate? Because it's like, for example, when junior people will give me their work and they make mistakes, it's like I have to fix it, right? And then, but if I teach them stuff, I try to teach them stuff, but then I still have to do their work for them because they may not learn right away. So then it's kind of like, okay, so do I want to spend my time teaching them, and then I have to check their work anyway? Or some of them are kind of they're just kind of slow to learn. So then I have to do the work anyway. And so I'm not really sure exactly what to do. So what I grind is I just basically do their work for them. And so I just don't know if I can keep that up.
Sure. It sounds like you're kind of interacting with a lot of things that you don't want to do.
Well, I mean, that's what it feels like now. I was really excited coming into this, but now it's not what I wanted it, I thought it would be.
What did you think it would be?
I don't know. I mean, I thought that when I got promoted, having people under me would allow me to do more. But I feel like instead of, expanding my own skill set, instead of learning new things, instead of doing different kind of work, I'm just doing my work and the work of the people below me.
Yeah, so it kind of sounds like they almost switched the game on you, and like nobody told you.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like what they did is they said I was playing one game, but actually what's going on is I'm playing the old game and I'm playing the new game at the same time.
Have you seen any of the videos on burnout?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hella burnt out, tbh.
Okay. Just checking.
You know, like, but what do I do about that? You know, it's
Sure.
like, do I quit? Like, you know, I feel like if I could get better at it, you know, if I could learn how to meditate, like, you know, if I did better, then I wouldn't be so burnt out. But I don't know how to do better. I'm doing everything that I can.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff that is going on kind of around you, and some of it's what you want to interact with, and some of it's not stuff you want to interact with. It feels like doing both is leading you down this path that like you don't even want to be here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so tired. I thought like maybe I had a testosterone deficiency, so I got that tested. My testosterone levels are normal. I felt like maybe I had like a B vitamin deficiency. I ordered some of the supplements off of a very popular podcast that I listened to because I thought that would help. It hasn't seemed to help very much. It's helped some, you know.
Yeah. And now kind of what you're talking about with like learning all this stuff, meditation, etc. It kind of sounds like you're taking on almost a third job. Like you got the one game you're playing, then they introduced a new game that you have to play, and now you have to figure out like how do I do all of this stuff in my own life so that I can also play two games.
You know, I never thought about it that way, but like that's the only way, right? Like you got to do all this other stuff. It's like supplements and meditation and like, you know, high protein diets and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, I mean, that's what people do who are successful, right? But like, I'm not able to do that stuff. And I kind of feel like it's sort of too late because I should have built those habits earlier. Like I should have started doing that stuff in college and then I wouldn't have to do it now. And I don't know, you know, I don't know.
Yeah. So to reference one of the Dr. K videos you may or may not have seen, that content doesn't expire. You can still go back, you can still learn that stuff. It's not too late. I think it might be hard to do that while you're also playing two other games. It's a lot of work. It's especially a lot of work when you're feeling hella burnt out.
Yeah. I mean, is this something like, is this crazy, dude? Like, do I just need to like shut up and just like buckle down and just like grind harder? Like, is this the kind of thing where I'm just like whining and I just need to just, you know, grow the F up?
So I definitely wouldn't say you're whining. I mean, is there some venting there? Sure. But like that's part of processing. That's part of like being upset about the current situation. Like the current situation kind of sucks. But in no way does that mean like you need to just like man up and deal with it, right? Like you can actually decide, do I want to interact with this stuff or not? And how do I want to interact with it?
I mean, but it's there every single day. Like, that's not my decision.
What's not your decision?
Like, interacting with this stuff. Like, on Monday morning, there's going to be a pile of crap on my desk that I have to deal with.
I mean, that pile of crap's going to be there, yeah, but you also mentioned earlier, like, you might not want to do this anymore.
So, what are you saying? Are you saying I should quit?
I'm not saying you should quit. I'm saying you get to decide at what point do you want to interact with this stuff or not. And I don't think you're here to like whine about it. I don't think you're broken. I don't think like this is just the way it is. I think you legitimately have a lot of stuff going on right now. And to be honest, if I'm gonna like reflect back some of what I've heard from you, it sounds like you're more like upset with yourself for not being able to handle it all, and you feel like you should be able to do it all.
I mean, like, but I should be able to do it all, right? Like,
Why?
you know, are you, I mean, Sidekick, I'm going to up the difficulty, okay?
You can go for it, yeah.
So, like, look, I get all this, like, Buddhism, Dalai Lama BS, like, oh, it's all, like, oh, like, why do you have to
Sure,
do it?
yeah.
Like, I mean, like, why do you have to do it? Because you got to do it, right? Like, I don't want to be sitting around, unemployed, like,
Absolutely, yeah.
you know, moving back in with my parents. Like, I ain't going to do that. And I feel like what you're telling me is like, what? I should just like quit? You're saying like, oh, I don't have to deal with that stuff? Like, I mean, on Monday morning, that work is there. When you say I don't have to deal with it, what do you mean? Like, you're saying like, don't do it?
Not saying don't do it. What I'm saying is that work is going to be there no matter what. What you get to decide is what are you going to do about it? How are you going to interact with it?
I mean, I have to do the work. That's what I'm saying. So that's like, that's my interaction.
So when you're interacting with this stuff, though, what are you saying to yourself?
That I got to get this done.
I'm going to think for just a second, sorry. So you have to get this stuff done.
Yeah.
And the idea of everything we've talked about is the way that that stuff is weighing down on you is that it's too much.
Well, I mean, I can do it. I just don't know how long, right? I've been able to do it. It's just, I thought it would get easier.
And it's not.
No.
Do you feel like it's getting harder?
Every single day.
What do you think about that?
I'm trying to figure out if I should grind or quit.
I mean, both are viable options.
I mean, they both feel, I feel like it's like you call them viable, I call them crap.
Yeah?
Like the whole point that I signed up for coaching is because, I hear Dr. K talking about Dharma and things like that. And it's like, I want to find purpose. I want to find something that, like where I can like grind and love the grind.
Mm-hmm.
Where I can be proud of what I do, not like the same kind of BS like over and over and over again.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. There's actually a lot of that I feel is just difficult about careers in general, is that we eventually get burnout related to our duties that we feel like we originally signed up for, and then all this other nonsense comes along that we have to deal with in addition to our duties. Is that how you feel?
I mean, kind of, but like, you keep on asking me how I feel. Like, I don't know that how I feel is important. Like I got to figure out what to do.
Sure. So the reason how you feel is important is because it changes the way you interact with these things. Like you said, that work's going to be there no matter what you do. It's going to be there no matter what I say. It's going to be there no matter what you decide.
Well, I mean, it won't be there if I quit.
Yes, it will. It just won't be your responsibility anymore.
I mean, yeah, but then, I don't know.
So I'm going to use a bit of a pop culture quote here. And I feel like it might help. And if you totally reject it, that's okay too. So feel free to tell me like that sounds like bullshit. But the issue that sounds like you're dealing with is the whole idea of like people don't want it to be like it is, but it do.
Yeah, I mean, that's life though, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So like, I'm confused. Like, is this something you can help me with?
Yeah. So really what we're talking about here is this idea that it is this way. Right now it is this hard. It sucks that it's this hard. But when we say to ourselves, like, I don't want it to be this hard, it shouldn't be this hard, like, what we're doing is we're making it harder for us to actually interact with whatever that thing is and make a decision. So when I say both decisions are viable, do the thing or don't do the thing, you can. Right? Hunting for a new job right now might be hard. Yeah. You don't want to be a jobless bum or whatever other, like, yeah, absolutely. Doing the work is also hard. Right? You got to grind. You got to teach people you didn't sign up for this. You got to play 2 games at once, and now you got to work on work-life balance at the same time, and all of that sucks. But either way, this is the decision that is in front of you.
So how do I make the right one?
Is there a right one?
I mean, like, I'm tired of feeling this way. You know, but that too is like, do I follow that feeling or do I not follow that feeling, right? Is it about giving up or like, you know?
So you say giving up. If you didn't do this, if you didn't do the grind, if you didn't do the rat race, how would you feel about yourself?
I mean, terrible. I wouldn't be doing anything. Right? There's like, you know, like I work hard.
Yeah. But I mean, you would also work hard at finding a job. You would also work hard at whatever that job is.
Yeah, but I mean, what if that job is the same thing, you know? Like I have a particular background. I could go to an auditing job somewhere else, but like what if it's the same thing?
So I think functionally, like obviously this decision is going to be really difficult for you. But even within that, like there's going to be options for you.
Let's pause.
Sure.
So when you say that there are going to be options for me, SideKick, what do you think I'm going to say next?
That there aren't options.
Good.
That you have to do this.
Yep. Very good. Right. So help us understand what's going on. And I know that this client is probably in the top 1% of difficulty in terms of what
this is all the resistance in the world, man.
Good. So explain it to us.
So what I'm trying to do when we talk about this, when there keeps being that resistance, is to continue down that path. Right? Continue down. All right, there is resistance here. Let's go there. Let's talk about the resistance. Let's get into it. Let's get into why it's important. Let's get into whatever emotions or memories are related to it. Obviously, this client has a harder time engaging with those emotions around anything.
Mm-hmm.
So that path isn't going to be high yielding right now. Maybe it will in the future. So this client's at a place where like we got to talk about like functionally, like what is going on. So functionally, there's resistance to making a choice here and to both sides of the choice. And to the fact that it is the way it is.
Yeah, so as you were trying to move in that direction, what were you encountering?
So we kept looping back to this, like, I don't want to say it. The pressure from, I would say, both outside and inside for this client is extremely large.
Mm-hmm.
And that pressure that they feel is forcing them to then, like, I have to do this. Or even if I do it somewhere else, it's going to be the same. I'm going to have the same pressure. So we've done a lot with high potential high performers, all that kind of stuff. And what I would actually do with this client moving into that route is to start talking more about that stuff. Like understanding, like, how does burnout affect you? How are these things, like, getting into the idea of, like, what is good enough, right? Potentially, like, obviously there's lots of, like, conversations that could come out of that depending on the client. But
so I think you did one thing that was really, really good, a really next level move. It was subtle. So do you remember what you said before you used the colloquial phrase?
I'm going to use a pop culture reference here.
Yeah, before you said that.
It's okay if you think it's total bullshit.
Exactly. That was a masterful move. You were like, you literally, the phrase that you used is that it's okay for you to reject this too. And interestingly enough, so I was trying my level best to just swat back whatever you were telling me. right? So prior to clients, you're like explaining stuff to me. You're helping me think about things in a new way. But this client was like, no, no, no. The work is going to be there. What do you mean it's not going to be there? Someone else will have to do it. Well, that's not like, like I was like very, very frustrated, very antagonistic, looking, we call this in coaching, this is actually a concept from psychotherapy, but help seeking, help rejecting, right? Where I'm telling you, SideKick, help me, help me, help me. And you're like, all right, let's try to like rethink this. And I'm like, no rethinking. And so the most that you actually moved me, and I'd even want to say I was kind of ramping up, and then you started to diffuse me a little bit, and you're like, by the way, you can reject this too. And I was like, wait, so no, I'm not going to reject it.
Yep.
Screw you. I'm going to accept it. Right? So it's like, it's a really next level jujitsu that really kind of disarmed me a little bit. That was really fantastic. A couple of things is I recognize this is kind of artificiality, but if you're in this situation, I definitely think chasing that affect, right? So like you kept on kind of trying to get me to think a different way. I think a little bit more empathy, a little bit more, and you did a good job of this, right? So even that whole, the meta comment of it's okay to reject this, and sometimes that's just the way it is. I think you were kind of moving there. I think you could have been a little bit more empathic in terms of like,
Sure.
Being really specific about like, wow, I think a good summary statement that was empathic would have been really nice there. You could have said something like, here you are, you're a high performer, you're doing really well. And at the same time, like you're doing everything that you're supposed to do. And the world, like it's not resulting in what you thought it would be.
Yeah, I tried to go there with like the game statement of like you're playing this game and this game,
that
and
was
now
really
you're learning
good.
a new thing.
That was beautiful, by the way.
But I could have gone back there because that was
Yeah.
actually really effective. And now that I think about it, I definitely could have done that again.
Yeah. So I don't know if you noticed, but I think that came early. And so you were winning kind of the empathy war. I was like a little bit open-minded. And the more that you tried to move, because I'm not ready to move yet.
Yeah.
So and
Very pre-insight.
Yeah, very good. Right. So, and I also recognize that I imagine based on all the client feedback, I don't think you try to move people too quickly. I know there's a certain artificiality to it, which you've mentioned. So at the same time, I think it was really great. I hope you're okay. I mean, I did ramp up the difficulty and almost like was trying to set you up to fail. And I think you actually did a really good job. And really, I just love that statement. By the way, because it's so cool how you just tuned into it, right? By the way, you can reject this too. And it's like, no, I'm not going to reject it. It's like, wait, hold on a second. And then you're giving me permission. And then it's like, I can't be antagonistic with you.
Yep. I have a 6-year-old, so I've had some practice.
Okay. That's really well done.
Yeah.
I think that you also, it's clear to me that you know how to work with these people, right? So like you're recognizing what it's like to be kind of in this bind, working with people who are high potential, working with people who don't, a lot of the frustration, which I think we didn't really get to, comes from actually like my own insecurity. So you were actually addressing it, I think, you were explaining it actually really well. I just wasn't ready to hear it, where you kept on saying it's about the way that you relate to it. And the missing piece, so I think you're correct in terms of your theoretical analysis, but I just wasn't really ready to hear that. And the way that I relate to it, the reason everything is so hard for me is because when Monday morning rolls around, I'm afraid that I won't be able to do a good job. And so a lot of my burnout is actually coming from, as you kind of pointed out, the expectations that I put on myself. And more importantly, the fear that every week that goes by, like I'm afraid of failure and I'm looking for an out. And so as I'm looking for an out, I'll start to blame all kinds of other things, right? So I'm going to reject my job before it rejects me. There's a lot of stuff there, but I think that's over the course of weeks. I'm confident that,
Yeah, we would have gotten into a lot of stuff.
Yeah. But I thought you handled yourself really well. How did it feel? I mean, I know I told you I was going to ramp up.
I mean, obviously that last one was a little bit more intense. But yeah, it's really interesting. And honestly, some of those clients end up being some of the best because like it is like almost antagonistic at first. But like I think from kind of that fire, you can craft some of the best coaching relationships and really make a lot of great progress. So.
One thing I do want to say is you handled yourself under that pressure incredibly well. because
Thank you.
I was not. I'm sure Twitch chat felt it too, but like I was not. I was
Yeah,
like,
so my background in education is actually in special education. I know you know this. This is more
yeah,
for Twitch chat. So I have a master's degree in special ed, and I taught for about 8 years. So I've seen a lot of things. I've been in a lot of really weird, awkward situations, and um, yeah, you kind of just have to accept that that's the way it is, and then go forward with it. So I have a lot of practice with that, and I think what I'd say to everybody out there is the reason why I can do it now is because I've failed at it a bunch of times, because I've handled things in not the greatest ways and got feedback from my own supervisors, from myself, from learning things. So, yeah.
yeah, awesome. Really exemplary job, Sidekick. Any thoughts
Thank
about this experience for you? Anything that you want to share? Or
you. It's a lot of fun. It's a little nerve wracking, but I had a great time with it, and shout out to all my social Sandbox crew who's on the main Discord. If people don't know about it, we're doing another one tomorrow at 3 Central.
tell us a
So
little
that'll
bit
be the
about
last one
because
for July.
I've never been to one.
Sure, yeah. So the way Social Sandbox works is it actually started off as just like, hey, we're gonna help like some school age kids, like high school, college, whatever, with social skills because that's a big thing in our community. And so I just came in and talked about like social skills, social norms, that kind of thing. People loved it and they wanted more of it. So Tech Taylor decided we were going to do an event for July. We kind of ran like a beta version of it with instead of it just being like an ask a coach, it was, hey, I'm going to talk about this stuff. I'm going to lecture for like 10 or 15 minutes. And then we're going to pull people up on stage and have them do a practice conversation. And I kind of feed them like an improv kind of question or scenario or whatever. They talk for 10 or 15 minutes. They try to use whatever skill we covered that day. And then I provide feedback. They get feedback from the chat, that kind of thing. And it kind of just blew up and people loved it. And I think one of my favorite things about it is organically, the crew there decided that like when they didn't get a chance to go up on stage, because we can only have time for 2 or 3 pairs, they started making their own little lobbies and going out and practicing this stuff with each other. And I think that's like, personally, that's my favorite thing because that's the real like ripple effect of this is going out into the world now. People are actually doing this. People are helping each other, and that's just my favorite.
And do people actually like? Do they get? I mean, does it help people? Like, what's your sense?
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. I think like there are people who get up on stage who are just like almost everybody is really really nervous because it's people who already struggle with this stuff, and now you're going to be on stage talking in front of 100 other people. But we do that, and then almost always by the time they get to the end, they're like, "Hey, that wasn't terrible. Like I can actually have a conversation." And like, yeah, there might have been an awkward thing here or a cringy thing there or a silence or whatever, but like they can see, hey, I can do this stuff.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I don't know if I'm actually allowed to go to those, but I popped into our Ask a Coach event at the end of the last one, and I think thankfully that went okay. But kind of like office hours, there's some places that I discovered I was subbing in for someone who's running office hours, and I realized that like I don't know if I can actually do that. I don't know if
you
I
can't
can
show up to those. It's okay.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I realized that the point of office hours is to have a place where y'all can sort of like vibe, vent, or whatever. And I wasn't entirely sure that I would,
You just need a Dr. Lurker account. or
yeah,
something.
like it.
Yeah.
So I think it's really fantastic. I didn't know because I had heard that the lobbies were too full and that we weren't able to get to people. But it's really awesome to hear that people are actually like independently afterward, kind of going into breakout groups, and we can even think about that a little bit more formally.
Yeah, we're kind of we haven't formalized it yet. Tech Teller and I have talked about it extremely briefly, but we are gonna bring it back. We are gonna do more with it moving forward. We don't know if it'll be once a month or twice a month or when the official start date will be, but I mean, the community loves it so much, we're definitely gonna do more with it.
Awesome. And just want to say huge thank you for doing this. The feedback that I've gotten from every other coach who's done this in the past is that actually it's brutal. And so I tried really hard to be not quite as brutal, but I recognized I was trying to explore where that comes from, and I realized that I actually have so much faith in y'all that I know you can handle it.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, I think it was fine. I don't think you were brutal. Even at the end, like, was that a difficult client? Yes, absolutely. But I don't think you were brutal about it. I think it's just sometimes we get difficult clients and we got to make it work.
Yeah, beautiful.
Honestly, what I was more nervous about, like kind of what you touched on earlier, my style of coaching is very much me. It comes from my own background, my own experiences, my own skills. So like I'm very much a teacher through and through. This is what I do. I help people, I educate them. So I was a little nervous about how that would translate into like these kind of role play scenarios, because it's not like I have any long form anything. We're not going to develop a rapport that quickly.
Yeah.
So, but I think it went okay.
I thought it was fantastic. I think my only concern about that is that I think it goes over so well with an audience that my biggest concern is just that people may expect getting you as their coach.
Yeah, absolutely not. This is me. This
Right.
is not what everyone does.
Yeah.
Everyone's got their own style.
And that's something that we really support and encourage. And I think that's the whole point of a peer support or lived experience based program, which is that like every one of our coaches has a unique set of skills. We teach them some things which are kind of common, right? So like, and just like SideKick, you know, most of our coaches will be very familiar with everything we've talked about today. Should statements, burnout, beating yourself up, living up to expectations, how to...
We all go through that training. It's just how we go about talking to clients about it that really changes. Yeah.
And so some of the coaches are kind of a little bit less directive, a little bit warmer, more empathic, less didactic. And that's just kind of the luck of the draw. And it's also that, you know, not... I think, though, that what we really try to do is make sure that everyone has kind of a minimum competency. But beyond that, we actually really appreciate the variety of what coaches have. We've also had some clients who've worked with multiple coaches. So they'll do group coaching with one person and personal coaching with another person or something like that. And what we really find is that, you know, they'll really appreciate the differences between their two coaches. So thank you very much.
Sure.
SideKick, I thought you did an awesome job under pressure. I was not going easy on you, especially towards the end. And you really had a couple
It was a good time. It was fun.
A couple of really solid jiu-jitsu moves. And I don't even know if chat really caught that, right? Because you really have to be... But just hopefully with explanation and y'all were around, you guys really got to see that. He's like, oh, by the way, right? Because what am I doing? I'm rejecting, and chat feels it. You're like, by the way, you can reject this too. And then it's like, well... You know,
it's fun. Mental jiu-jitsu is a great time.
Yeah,
everybody should practice.
And sometimes it's kind of challenging, but I think a big part of the coaching relationship is helping people get out of their own heads and not letting their normal reactions to things. Oh, that won't work. It's not going to work for me. There's no point in trying, right? Because like what I'm doing is, especially with that third client, is I'm saying, oh, SideKick, like, should I keep grinding and be miserable, or should I quit and be a failure? Neither of those are acceptable options. It's very black and white thinking, and those are my only two.
Yep.
And then you're like, wait a second, but you may be able to work and not be miserable, right? That's what you're really sharing with this person, so that actually there's a possibility here. You have a contribution to this. And I'm like, what? No, that's not possible. It's not possible. And the way that you're really going to help that person is by working with them, by tolerating that high level of emotion, by doing a little bit of jiu-jitsu here or there, disarming a little bit, actually helping this person realize, oh, actually, I can be happy here.
Yeah. One of the things I really wanted to talk to that client about eventually was like, hey, you can also just like ask for a demotion. Right. But like we needed to diffuse way more resistance before I could ever say that. But like, hey, you want to just go back to playing game one? You can go back to playing game one. Like it's a thing. But obviously that would be something that we talk about after a few weeks or months.
Yeah. That's you really need a strong alliance to be able to handle that.
Got to establish a lot of rapport.
Yeah. Right. But it's a beautiful, I'm glad you said it, because what that really does is highlight to people, you know, that, oh, you have control here. You can go back to what you wanted. And then we're like, no, I absolutely do not want that. Okay, tell me why.
Yep.
Tell me why progress is important to you, why growth is important to you. If I let you rewind the clock and go back 2 years, and then as you tap into all that stuff, I think that's a beautiful direction. Love it.
Yeah, it was awesome. It's a great experience. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. Take care, SideKick.
Have a good one.
Bye. All righty. How was that, chat? Was I too rough on SideKick? Do y'all think SideKick handled himself well under pressure? One thing that I kind of noticed, I was debating trying to role play not a man, but I don't know if I can do that justice, because I think that, you know, male coach, male clients, I'd sort of been a little bit, I'd sort of used the phrase partner with the second one, but I really think that we're missing something. I just don't know that I can role play a female client with authenticity. And I hope at some point we get one of our female coaches as the coach as well, or one of our non-binary coaches. Because I think that, just to be more complete. Yeah, so people are kind of saying do it for the clips. I think it's not just about the clips. I think it's understanding that experiences of people with different genders can be different, and kind of honoring that and really understanding and respecting that. And it may be good for the clips, but this is the kind of thing where like, I could talk like this and pretend to be someone else. But I think that while it would be good for the clips, I think it actually is not honoring, right? Because it makes it a satire. Whereas when we get clients who are women or non-binary, or coaches who are women or non-binary, then we don't want to just have the representation of that to be satire. That's not okay. Does that make sense? Like, we need to have a more authentic representation of that, because that's really what we're here to do. Ask Ruthie if she'll RP. Yeah, so, we actually have spots. I think y'all can sign up and be in coaching within 48 hours. This was just like a quick run through of sometimes what coaching entails. There was a certain amount of artificiality to this. But hopefully y'all can see that, our coaches are really good. And we have a lot of faith in them, and they understand a lot. SideKick has been coaching for, I want to say, about 2 years now. And so he's probably seen well over 50 clients, maybe over 100 clients, not quite sure how many. But, maybe 150, 200, something like that, I would guess. And so at this point, we also have a fair amount of experience to where your coaches are really going to understand what to think about in terms of burnout. And that's also where, getting the client to that understanding is usually a slower process. Because what we tend to find is when we lay it all out, what you'll encounter is the third person who will just reject it. Right? Yeah, there's a contribution. But, that you have to overcome that resistance. You really have to, get the person to be open-minded, which is a lot of what it's about. Where's the line between seeking coaching or seeking therapy? That's a great question. We've got a page about it, about coaching versus therapy. So y'all can check that out. Okay, so we're going to have to run because, as I mentioned, I'm double booked. So let me just see. Who do we want to raid? Chat, we get to do Thursday raids today. Also, huge shout out to our mod team, everyone who's put together Social Sandbox. As y'all heard, there's another session Friday at 3 p.m. Central, I believe. So I think SideKick it sounds like SideKick runs that one. So if y'all want to, get some of SideKick's direct wisdom. Iron Mouse? Cool. Oh, Iron Mouse or Kanut? Who do y'all want to raid? Kanut. Let's raid Kanut. Okay, send Kanut some love. Right, so let's start getting ourselves physically into shape as well. And just a quick heads up, so we won't be streaming next week. We're going to be out. So hopefully y'all have enjoyed the streams this week. We should continue to have uploads to the YouTube channel. And have a good week, everybody. Love y'all.